Intelligent Psycho back with another live. So I'm here to talk about Daredevil Born Again episode 7, but also before I talk about the actual episode, I'm gonna reveal a Easter egg or has a perfect opportunity to introduce one missing villain from the original show that was secretly setting up since season 1. So I'm gonna read this article from Screen Rant to talk about that as well. So Daredevil Born Again is a perfect opportunity to introduce one missing Marvel villain whose Daredevil set up 10 years ago and is planned to feature an original series more than once. Folding Daredevil's world properly introduced into the MCU timeline has led a range of exciting figures to become a part of the franchise whose Daredevil's world properly into the MCU timeline and has led a range of exciting figures to become a part of the franchise. Daredevil Born Again cast bringing even more characters to the forefront, including the likes of Muse and Ben Ulrich's niece BB in this story. With that said, though the MCU show has the potential to bring many more characters into the world in a way where it benefits both it and the wider universe. And in fact, there is more. There is more than one character in the original Daredevil show that it plans to include, but who are unable to feature in the actual run of the Netflix Defender show. And even the case of the figure, the story had looked at making a part of the world and narrative from its first season. Mercifully, Daredevil Born Again's own release offers the perfect way to fix the decades down the line, and especially given the way that the story ties into the previous narrative threads of Daredevil and its unused plans that may have ultimately now become a reality years later thanks to the directions Born Again has taken. Daredevil set up one villain since season 1. So Daredevil season 1 showrunner Stephen DeKnight discussed the run of the original Netflix series with season 3 showrunner Eric Olson in 2020 Save Daredevil Con event with the two delving into much about the show's story and providing some added behind the scenes context to the installment. Interestingly, both DeKnight and Olsen describe having plans to bring the Marvel villain the Owl into Daredevil a bit at very different stages of the original series narrative. The Knight mentions that he had seen a question about Leland's Owlsley's son in season 1, explaining that we were setting up the Owl from the comics that was going to be Leland Owlsley's son. This son who was out of revenge for what has happened to his father, and this makes sense based on the events of season 1. And as Leland Owlsley is notable ally of Kingpin, before it's revealed that he and Madame Gal had conspired to kill Wilson's fifth partner Vanessa to make him focus on the criminal empire again, leading Fist to throw Leland down an elevator shaft to his death. And given Daredevil made sure to display the ramifications of many of the big events in the series, like Bullseye turning on Kingpin because he discovered that Fisk had killed the woman that he was obsessed with having Owlsley son return into vengeance in his mind, which have definitely fit into the show. Similarly, the version of the Owl could have worked as a foe for both Daredevil and Kingpin, making him a fascinating potential addition to the cast. And season 3 showrunner Eric Olson also had intentions to bring Leland's son into the cast, but these plans ultimately had never came to fruition. Leland Owlsley's son didn't end up getting his Daredevil villain story despite this setup. Even after Stephen DeKnight's explanation of Daredevil season 1 was made to set up Leland Owlsley's son debuting in the, as the Owl later on, season 3 showrunner Eric Olson described the later plans for the character, stating that I was building on that in season 4. Owlsley will be one of the key figures in the season as well. And his plans will bring both Marvel villains Typhoid, Mary, and the Owl into the story, delaying Bullseye's return until season 5. that his recovery time from the major surgery he had underwent could have been factored into the show's timeline. However, Daredevil ended up finishing with season 3 with the story that threads set up here only now being properly followed up and on thanks to the release of Daredevil Born Again, which serves as a successor of sorts in the original series, and thus the ability to answer several lingering questions and cliffhangers. And until then, Olsen alludes to any ideas for the stories further than season 3, especially season 3 was essentially scuppered, a sculptor, and as one of as while the solid plans for immersion of the future chapters of Daredevil, the show's cancellation meant that following up the concepts like the Owl season 4 debuted as impossible. Daredevil Born Again has a perfect chance to bring Owlsley's son into the franchise. Daredevil Born Again might brought back the wide range of characters from the original series that it's easy to think might never be seen again, and follow up on a story that has been set up for seasons of Daredevil that never came to pass. But showing Bullseye after this operation he undergoes at the end of Daredevil season 3, following Kingpin breaking his spine, as such, an entirely line with the show's approach into acting as a sequel to the original Daredevil and to introduce Owlsley's son into the mix. And given the key part of Kingpin's story in Born Again as a concept of his past as a criminal boss, coming back to bite him in the mirror effects as the show has developed into the idea of Marvel's next generation through the things that he teases of Hector Ayala's niece may take up his hero mantle after he is murdered in Daredevil Born Again episode 3. It was seen thematically the appropriate for Leland Owlsley's son is also to enter the fray. And this is particularly true given his appearance that could help shift the balance of power in the show once more and provide Kingpin with another unforeseen obstacle to his goals. With Daredevil Born Again Season 2 already now filming, and plenty of hopes that the series can continue at least for a third season following that based on the positive reception to Season 1 thus far. It also seems that it can be plenty of room to exploring story and avenues like this, following series like the villain origin story of Owlsley's son are especially interesting since they can enhance the MCU show and retrospectively add further layers and meaning to the original series as well without changing or retconning the events of the already massively successful original run. So now going into all that, breaking down and reading all this, tell me what you guys think. But for me, I really do think that the Court of Owls and I think the Owl Season 4 should be implemented from the comics into Daredevil Born Again, because I think it would add a lot of layers and a lot of depth since they already added more layers and characters from the comics like Frank Castle, played by John Berthelot. Then you got, of course, Bullseye, the Muse, of course, with Kingpin. Like, you got so many iconic driven characters in this series that if you were to add something like that and Leland Owlsley's son in the show, it would absolutely add more layers and add more depth to it, man. And we are going to be in for a treat. As spoilers of fans that really, really enjoyed the show, this really is going to add a lot more layers and add a lot more context. And again, like I said before, although I don't believe the MCU necessarily is going to be back, for the time being, this and of course what happened with Deadpool and Wolverine, bringing in X-Men and how X-Men could really have a really good attribute to what's going to be the future of the MCU, and of course with Captain America with the adamantium stuff, I really think that they're trying to take little steps into going into this positive direction, and I feel like this will be going further. And for me, I really think that they need to do this because they need to set up the Owls. They need to set up something that adds a little bit more tenuous, a lot of more layers and a lot more avenue and a lot more leeway, to really bring forth a levity and bring forth some excitement, a little bit more of nuance, a little bit more flavor and nuance to the show and to the characters. So I really do like this idea, and I really do like the fact that the character of Leela, obviously his son, will be added in it because we don't know what the story about what happened to him after what happened with season three. It's still been unsolved. It's still being unforsakenly, not been told the right and the proper way. So that could be something that could add a lot more depth and add a lot more to the fruition. So I cannot wait to see what happens with that with this part of the show. So yeah, cannot wait. And again, for me, it's something that adds a lot more context and it adds to the it's going to be adding to the show. Hopefully, if this does happen, to bring forth more fans, new fans, casual fans, and just comic book goers all at once. So I cannot wait to see this happen as we move forward within the episodes, and maybe they do a teaser for it at the end. All right, so while we get that Easter egg out the way, let me recap episode 7. And let me recap episode 7 with Board again. It's called The Art for Art's Sake. Never Meet Your Muses. So in this series of Born Again, Wilson Fisk and Matt Murdock. Oh wait, is this the right one? Yeah, yeah. Matt Murdock meet at a dine over coffee and tea with Fisk get the verge of becoming the next mayor. Oh no, maybe not. Oh, maybe that's probably the wrong one. Huh. Oh wait a minute, that's probably not the. Okay, here we go. That's what I'm talking about. Episodes of build up for the Muse character. Here we go. I was a fan of Daredevil Born Again's double episode drop last week. It was a great choice, but episode 5, a detour from the main story episodes, and episode 6 finally gave us Charlie Cox back in the Daredevil suit, as well as the fight with Muse, and how the character plays out in the comics. I may have been excited about what the Marvel Cinematic Universe could do with him in the start, but episode 7 is a confirmation of Wednesday's Hunter Duhan as the actor behind the Muse mask. The Muse is definitely the focus of this week's episode, which makes it for an intriguing 2-hour arc paired in episode 6 that I said. I just like the idea of cutting the Muse short story, which I agree. I think they cut the Muse story way too short. And I think that they kind of really rushed this character to be killed off so quickly and evidently because they could have done more with the character longer with the show. So I do kind of see, you know, what the article is saying. So as I'm reading on, I wanted to see him grow as what we got to season one's final 2 episodes, but it seems like MCU's TV show has somehow planned something else planned for them. And besides the Muse plot and how it pulls Heather Glenn into the superhero action, I was intrigued by how much episode 7 put Wilson Fisk's life at risk the moment he seemed virtually untouchable. Morning adds Muse to the roster. He's saying it's just Muse to the roster of major deaths. The villain had the potential for more MCU appearances. Something I can't help notice in how Daredevil Born Again was structured and it thoroughly explained through behind the scenes reports shows Tony is initially close to that goal of the action, close to that legal procedure rather than the actual superhero series. I definitely believe the initial structure that could be felt at a lot of points, such as the show's arc are planned out. While I wanted to see Muse be a major part of the season in a way he is, I also thought that episode 7 could turn out to be his last. And as Duhan explains, I put up a magnetic performance in the role, making Bastion Muse creepy with and without the mask. The Punisher, White Tiger, the Bank Heist, and more arcs have been shown in Born Again as fine with picking up stories, furthering Daredevil and Kingpin's development through them, and sending their characters away. Yes, I know Frank Castle was slated to return, but the sentiment stands out for the rest, and I had mixed reactions to how Muse's story is handled in episode 7, and Duan put up a magnetic performance in a role, making Bastion Muse more creepy with and without the mask, and how Heather was pulled into the action by Muse's fascination with her. I never explained that Heather would kill Muse. Looking forward to learning how the event affects her, and she had already revealed to Matt in the past episode that she was writing a book about masked vigilantes and the relationship with their identities. The action is perfect. I love how Daredevil and the Muse fought at Heather's office played out, and the save for the villain's death. And it felt another case of the MCU killing a promising villain too soon. At least Muse's death can further Heather's story and development of Fisk's anti-vigilante task force, which takes credit for it. Yeah, so we got with this Muse, aka Bastion, had a conversation with Heather in her office, talking about the book that she's going to be reading, but she wanted to learn more about Bastion and Muse, wanted to learn more about his personality, wanted to learn more about his traits. Why does he kill for the sake of killing? Why does he put on the mask? Will he take the mask off and everything like that? So she calls him pretty much a coward, because he had the mask on to shield his identity and everything. So that's what we got into that conversation, and what we got afterwards, where Muse basically tortures and threatens to harm her and bodily harm her in so many ways. Daredevil comes in, Matt Murdock comes in, and he swoops in and saves, his girl, and pretty much takes down Muse. Wilson Fisk's anti-vigilante task force takes credit for the fact that Daredevil killed Muse, fought Muse, and then Heather killed Muse in the end. So we saw that happening. We saw Fisk having a conversation with Vanessa, about life and about, running a business, him being a politician. It's not working out not the way it should. We had seen in the prior episodes in between, New York kind of looking for its own hero, looking for his what we call vigilante, but looking for its own hero, looking for somebody to save, looking for somebody to really get a hold and the next forward and further, and we got to see that throughout. So yeah, what a solid episode. It's not better than episodes 5 and 6, but it had a lot of action, had a lot of stakes, and if you saw what Kingpin did, and when you saw what Kingpin did to his arch nemesis, you got a chance to see him at his best from the last episode and on further down. Of course, Wilson Fisk has to deal with an attempt to kill him, as Kingpin and Vanessa's relationship is still rocky. Daredevil is wrapped with the Muse storyline episode 7 directly fighting the villain and being there for the demise, As for Vincent D'Onofrio's Whiskey Fisk, as the show, other main character was also involved in the proceedings through in a different way, and I'm very much enjoying how the series shows a different side of Kingpin. Though his role as mayor, there are abound of certain hoops to jump through things this way, and the anti-vigilante task force claiming it took down Muse will strengthen Fisk's position considerably. So yeah, you know what happens in comic book shows. You know, the task force takes the credit for killings of when somebody else does it, and it kind of just goes to show you that Fisk is against vigilantes, but it turns out, but when you think about it, like I said in the last couple episode recaps, Fisk is not gonna like this is not gonna turn out well between him being the mayor of the 112th district in New York. This is not gonna turn out well for him because when you really think about it, he still has the demon inside of him as Kingpin inside of him. He still has that itching at him and itching at him and itching at him. As you can saw him fighting on boy in the cell in the last episode, it's still kind of getting to him. It's still kind of egging him on. And of course, Matt Murdock being as Daredevil, he wanted to put it to bed and let the authorities handle and take care of things, but he saw that it's not gonna turn out well. If you're just gonna continue to let things slide and let things run by and pass instead of doing like what Hector Ayala's niece was saying to him, in his office. And it just goes to show you that we are really getting down to the nitty and gritty of where these episodes are going to unline, unveil, and reveal about everyone's character in here, moral compass, everything is all in the question. So, really, really solid episode, and I'm really loving this show. And this is all I got to say about this show and this recap and revealing of the missing villain and also another missing character in the show that could be pop up really soon. So yeah, tell me what you guys think about Daredevil Born Again. Tell me what you guys think about this episode and what I had to say. So again, I will see you guys later. I am out. I'm gonna do one more thing and I'm gonna get on out of here. So thank you guys for watching and like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I'm out.